Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care podcast and video. Today, we're going to be talking about whether or not RV manufacturers even care about quality anymore these days. Now, the reason we're talking about that is that since the COVID pandemic, RV factories are turning out more RVs, record numbers of RVs, more than they've ever made in the past, and a lot of them are being bought by newer RVers. But at the same time they're producing all these new RVs, there are an incredible number of complaints from the buyers of these RVs. Complaints about all sorts of quality control issues. And it's not just a few things, it's random all across the board. So the question is this: what is the reason for this? Do these RV manufacturers really even care about quality at all? Well, to answer that question, we have to go back in time just a little bit. Let's go back to the years 2000 to 2007. And honestly, most RVers that have been around a while recognize that some of the best RVs ever made were made in those years. It was a golden age for quality in the RV industry. Quality seemed to be getting steadily better too, year after year. And then all of a sudden, 2008 happened, the economic crash. And it affected the entire economy, obviously, but RVs especially were really affected by that. So the manufacturers were trying to figure out how to survive. Many of them lowered prices just to sell units. But to do that, you had to lower build quality and the building materials. Sure enough, that strategy did work for many of them. I mean, there were several really good brands that we lost right around that time. But many of the other manufacturers did squeak through that economic crash by using that strategy. The problem is this: once the economy stabilized, well, then quality build methods and materials did not go back to pre-2008 levels. However, to be fair, you have to say that there was effort being made. These manufacturers were trying year over year to kind of improve the product and get it to a better level. And then along comes COVID. And of course, COVID surprised everybody. The American economy was thrown into a real mess. But the truth is that for the RV industry, this was a boon. And that's because all these people had been cooped up for a while. They had to socially distance, so they were looking for some way to distance themselves but still have a little fun. And RVs fit that bill perfectly. So all of a sudden, RV manufacturers had an overwhelming number of orders just coming in. But remember, they got affected by COVID as well as everybody else did. And it affected their manpower, their workforce. So at the same time, they've got all these orders coming in, they have a large section of their workforce out sick. Well, that was a challenge for all of these RV manufacturers because they need to maintain a reliable workforce to produce a quality product. Why? Because, my friends, RVs are still generally made by hand. They're not like autos. Long ago, the auto industry recognized that automation is the way to keep quality up. But RVs are generally still made by hand, and that means that you need consistently good quality, experienced workers that are working on your assembly lines to make sure that the product that comes out on the other end is really good. Now, at the same time all this is happening, well, then supply chain issues started hitting, and you couldn't get air conditioners, and the manufacturers couldn't get refrigerators at some point, and motorhome manufacturers are having issues with the chassis and so on. There was all kinds of problems that was affecting the RV manufacturers because of the COVID pandemic. And then because of all of this, they at the same time had this huge amount of orders coming in. So they're trying to pump out these RVs as much as possible and be as profitable as they can. Well, what that did is it affected their quality control procedures. There are quality control procedures that are usually in force on any assembly line to catch things that weren't done right. But now quality control will slow down an assembly line. It just does, because when a problem is found, somebody's got to go fix that problem, and the product itself can't move farther down the line until it's fixed. So as a result, the manufacturers were really not doing an awful lot of quality control to get these products out the door. All of this meant that in the last 2 years, the RV dealers have been receiving all these RVs to fill the orders that have problems. I mean, lots of problems all across the board. Well, the dealers didn't want to deal with the problems either. They're too busy selling. They want to make as much money as they can. So they were not willing to spend the time or the money to fix all of these problems coming out of the manufacturers. They did not view it as their problem. They viewed it as the manufacturer's problem. So now let me ask this question. In this scenario, I've tried to lay it out how it's all happened. And in this scenario, who gets the short end of the stick? Is it the manufacturers? No, because the manufacturers are making more money than they've made in years and years from all these orders coming in. Yes, they have a lot of headaches going on, but they're still making money. Is it the dealers? Not at all. Dealers are selling RVs like crazy. They love the environment that we're in. They are in the driver's seat at this point in the buying process. So who gets the short end of the stick? Because somebody has to pay for all of these quality issues. Well, it's the buyer. The buyer, you, the consumer, who comes and buys a new RV with the trust that it is a really good quality product. And then they take it out and suddenly find that it has a laundry list of problems that is as long as your arm. And then they come back to the dealer, and sure enough, they get fixed, but it takes months and months in many cases to get the problems solved. All right, now, in this scenario, the question that we're inevitably led to then, is it even possible to get a quality RV, a new RV these days? Is that even something that you should be considering? Well, here's my answer. I believe that it is possible to get a quality new or newer RV these days. But I believe that you have to know what you're doing to be able to do it. It's not as simple as just walking into a dealer, plunking down your money, and taking that RV home. And that's the reason why in the last 6 months or so, I've been putting out a lot of guidebooks to help people learn how to buy RVs and how to buy the ones that are the better made RVs. Because there's a 3-step process that I believe that you need to go through these days when you're buying a new RV in order to make sure that you're buying quality. And the very first step is that you need to buy from the manufacturers or the brands that are known for being a cut above their competition when it comes to quality. Try to put the odds on your side for getting a quality RV that way. Now, to do that, I produced several guidebooks that help outline the best RV brands in any particular segment of the industry, whether that's Class A, B, C, Super C, fifth wheels, or travel trailers. So that can be very helpful for you. But that leads us to step number 2. And that is, do not buy a new RV these days without getting it inspected by a certified NRVIA inspector. Now, this is something that a lot of people, they just rebel against, that whole idea. Why would I want to inspect something that's brand new? Well, if you want to take the risk of having all these issues that are coming out of the factory, and risk the fact that you could have a long laundry list of frustration and headache for the next several months, well, then go ahead and ignore the inspection. But if you want the RV you pay for on the very first day of your ownership, you need to have it inspected while it's still on the dealer lot. And that leads to the third point for success in getting a quality RV. Do not take delivery of that RV after the inspection until every single item on that inspection list has been fixed and repaired. Now, why do we say that? Because these dealers are in a turn and burn mode. They want to move right on to that next sale. They want as much money as they can get. And unfortunately, that's not being customer oriented. So if you take their word for it that they're going to fix it at some point, well, you know what? You're right back into that situation where you will go to the back of the RV dealer's repair line, and it will be months and months in many cases before you get the RV that you paid for. So these are the 3 steps that I believe that you must do in order to make sure that you get a quality new RV. Let me say this, many dealers these days, more and more, are resisting all of this. They just want to sell units, and they want you to take it on the chin in many cases. In other words, they are denying RV inspections, or they're trying to talk people out of them. Like, you really don't need that on a new RV. Or our PDI process does everything they do. And none of that is true. So, my friends, recognize that you do need to get an inspection. You need to buy from a quality brand first, get an inspection, get all those things fixed before you take delivery. And then, if you follow the procedure that I've talked about in this video, well, then you really can get a quality new RV that works from the very first day of ownership. Well, that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.